Possession, or Ninjago's 5th season, has definitely gained a reputation for being one of the best seasons that we've had in the Ninjago catalogue, and honestly for good reason. The season itself is very unique, and it definitely does have its own unique tone as well, and I really do like it for that fact, and I understand fully why it does have that reputation. But it definitely seems to be that it's actually gained a lot more debate within recent time. Where we've had so many more Ninjago seasons and so many more eras, the pot has definitely expanded for what can be considered a favourite. And honestly, I don't really want to go into that argument today, because it goes into the question of whether or not Possession is overrated or not. And honestly, I just don't really know if that's something I want to weigh in on. Honestly, at the end of the day, everyone has a different opinion on every Ninjago season, and that is why I absolutely love to see what other people have to think. One of the most recent videos I can think of when it comes to the discussion around Possession is actually the one from Tom's Lawyer, and he does talk about the overrated nature of Possession. Honestly, I would really recommend you check out that video because it is really good, and shout out to Tom's Lawyer of course. But in today's video, on my continuous quest to do a video about each and every single Ninjago season, I'm going to do my own personal little retrospective when it does come to Possession. Talk about my own personal feelings towards the season and how I feel about it 11 years on. I'm very old. So sit back, relax, and let's actually talk about Possession. Let's talk about what the season does, what it introduces, and what it does with our beloved characters. Because I do think it is a very interesting season, and there is honestly a lot to go into. So, let me not waste any more of your time, and let's talk about Possession. So where does Season 5 actually pick up from? Well, presumably not long after the events of Season 4, we get to see the ninja just basically performing day-to-day tasks. The season itself actually just opens up with them using their elemental dragons to actually just help out fishermen. I really like this, and it shows that the ninja do actually care about the people of Ninjago. We also know that Wu is essentially ready to retire. He was ready to live out the rest of his days on his newly found tea shop. And as a side note, I really wish this concept was actually reapproached. Honestly, I'm surprised that they haven't gone back to this idea that Wu basically just goes into retirement. We've had plenty of plot points after the fact where Wu doesn't feel worthy of being the master, but the thing is that this is the only time where it feels like Wu actually committed to actually stop him being what he was. But I really did like this, and everything just felt extremely casual amongst the ninja team. But of course, because of the events of Season 4, we know that Moro was released from the Cursed Realm, and he was not hesitating on going forth with his plan, but he just needed a vessel to be able to actually do it. And of course, he identified the new Green Ninja. And even as a beginning concept, I really like this. I really like what this season was actually opening up with. Having Moro be a former student of Wu and actually wanting to be the Green Ninja was fantastic, because it's a new angle we haven't seen by this point in the show. All of the villains we've seen before now are these big forces of evil, or these people with these master plans, but actually having a villain start out as essentially a good person is really interesting to actually see, and it was definitely a good shakeup, which I think a lot of people were definitely hooked on. I think just generally as a concept, Possession just honestly worked. It felt extremely planned out, and it definitely felt like they knew what they wanted to do. I really like this as just an opening hook, which is honestly the biggest part of any season of any show. You want people to feel invested near enough immediately, and it definitely did feel like Possession did this. And I think that's just one of the main reasons why this season just works for a lot of people, me included. It just feels like this season did just want to take a new approach when it does come to Ninjago. And you can see it in more ways than just the villain concept in of itself. Ghosts are a massive departure from what we've actually seen from Ninjago beforehand. Ghosts is a fundamental difference that the ninja never encountered by that point in time. Every villain that the ninja encountered before now were basically able to be taken down just by some form of weapon or just by general ninja skill. The most they've ever had in a way of conflict, or more importantly as a way to have to avoid conflict, was the Stone Warriors, but that kind of got settled relatively quickly because they were just another enemy. But the Ghosts were a fundamental difference that they actually had to look for a solution for, and we will talk about that at least a little bit later on. But the thing is that again, it just goes to show that they were taking some differences this time round, and I really did like that. And another really big way it just stands out amongst the rest of the seasons is the fact that it does take a lot more of those darker tones like I mentioned in the intro. A big thing with Moro, like I said about him trying to enact his plan, was finding a vessel, and that was Lloyd. Lloyd is basically absent in this season for the most part. He doesn't really turn up until the end of the season because Moro is just constantly in possession of him, and that is something that I think is really interesting and just dark. I think having a ninja basically be not in control of themselves is something that Ninjago wouldn't have really done beforehand, and it's something they don't really touch on afterwards either, and I just really find that interesting. It again makes it stand out, it makes it have its own unique feel, because possessed Lloyd is something that you just wouldn't have expected, but they did it, and they did it well. But let's actually just go into Moro himself, because I really do want to talk about this character because of the long history that he now does have in Ninjago. I have done a few videos on Moro before, and I would definitely recommend you do that, so I am going to keep this thing a little bit brief, but also not, because Moro as a main villain is just something that really did work for me. Of course, the big bad of the season was the Preeminent, and that is completely fine, there's nothing wrong with that at all, and the Preeminent definitely does have her own position in the season itself, but Moro is the thing that people will come into, and he just works in every single way possible. His personality is enticing and it feels extremely unique. You can really feel when Moro is upset, or when he's angry, or when he's happy, or when he's gloating. He just works, the emotion is flowing through him, and that is partly due to the amazing performance from Andrew Francis as well, but Moro just inherently had that unique flair that just had the effect that added to the season. And all of that emotion and all of that amazing charisma he has through the season comes from the amazing backstory that we learn in the second episode of the season. The show doesn't hesitate to tell us what happened with Moro. He is the rejected Green Ninja. He is the prophesied savior that Wu thought was going to be the one. But in reality, he just simply wasn't, and Wu really didn't know how to handle that. And Moro had this aggression, this anger, this deep-seated desire to be the best that Wu just simply didn't know what to do with until it was basically too late. And again, I really like this. I think the backstory is perfect for a character like Moro, and again, does just make him feel unique, because we don't get to see this concept very often, because if Wu had a student every season, I guess it would definitely lose its kind of edge to it. But honestly, I just really like how they decided to really bank in on what made Moro Moro, and I like that it does influence every action that he does have throughout the entirety of the season. Even as far as the end of the season, you will hear him talk about how he should have been the Green Ninja, you will hear him talk about how Lloyd isn't good enough, and you'll see the effects that this backstory had on him. It is 101 how to write a villain. I absolutely adore it, and I can't fault the writers for how much thought they put into him. It is just simply what you need when it does come to a villain, because a villain needs emotions to basically be a villain. It sounds really weird inherently, I understand that, but the thing is that when a villain isn't emotional in any sort of way, he kind of just doesn't work, because it feels like he almost doesn't care. But you can just feel the care in Moro, you can feel how palpable it actually is with his character in everything that he does. And Ninjago is really good at giving that emotional flair to villains. There are plenty of villains that also achieve this effect, but in my opinion, Moro will always be a standout, and he will always be up there in terms of my ranking, in terms of how emotionally invested the villains truly were. And again, it just works, and definitely again just adds to the season. He is, in my opinion, a really good main villain, and borderline a perfect one. And I just like the fact that even since the event of the season, he has been handled very well as well. Honestly, I just can't say enough good about this character. I adore him in every single way, and I just can't wait to see if we do get him again in Dragon's Rising, because like I said, even as recent as Dragon's Rising, they have done him very well. But note that I said borderline perfect. The thing is that I do have one very small little nitpick when it does come to Moro in possession. And honestly, by no means does it take away from the character, it's just that I can acknowledge it and just acknowledge the fact that no character is completely perfect front to back. The thing is about Moro is that I feel like to an extent, they almost did limit Moro. The thing about him is, like I said, he was in possession of Lloyd, and I feel like we didn't actually get a lot of time to actually see Moro himself. We get a lot of Moro's personality, but the thing is that for the most part, we're basically just seeing him possess a different person, and I just don't really care for that. There's one thing about a villain that always does matter, which is the design of the villain, the feel and the actual impression of the villain. When I think of possessed Lloyd, I think of Lloyd. I just wish Moro actually got to be himself a lot more, because we don't really get to see him basically until the end of the season. We don't actually get to see the full design of Moro basically until the second half of Season 5. So that is a massive nitpick. I don't want that to go in the way of Moro as a character, it's just I wish we actually got to see Moro more physically. But that, again, is just a massive nitpick. But honestly, on an overall, Moro is just absolutely fantastic. I don't have any issue apart from that. But let's actually move on from him, because there's a lot more to talk about. Now look into the ninja team themselves. There are of course some characters that got a lot more character development than others within the season, so I am going to talk about them accordingly when I do think of that in mind. And of course Lloyd is technically the main character of the season, it is advertised as a Lloyd season, but in my opinion the main ninja throughout all of this was most definitely Nia. Nia had a lot of character development within Season 5, and it was a lot of amazing character development at that. She had a lot going for her this time round, and I absolutely loved it. The big reveal of course course being that she is actually an elemental master. She is the master of water, taken after her mother, and the thing is that we didn't know it by this point in time because Wu didn't believe that she was ready. He actually still didn't think she was ready as of the point of season 5, but she actually had to become an elemental master because of necessity. Her elemental power was the direct counter to ghosts, and that is why she actually had to become it at that point in time. Her arc of becoming an elemental master I think is absolutely amazing, and it was a really nice contrast from season 5 in of itself. The main plot point I think was very jam-packed with a lot going on for the main ninja team, whereas Nia was actually put to the side for these more relaxing scenes. Her training scenes were definitely a nice bit of fresh air, especially with some of the content we did get from the season. Honestly, it feels quite reminiscent of when Lloyd was becoming the Green Ninja in season 2. Lloyd had to sit out of the main plot, had to sit out of the fight because he had his own training to actually get done. I really like it, and I think it's an unintentional callback, but a decent one at that. But the scenes of Nia becoming a water ninja I think are fantastic, and it definitely does show you a lot about her character. Of course, we go back to the concept of true potential in the season, and I really like how her true potential, the thing that was holding her back, was basically the fact that she has a fear of losing, she had a fear of failing, she had a fear of not basically being the best, because in a lot of ways, that is what Nia was for a lot of the time in the previous seasons. She was Samurai X, she was one of the best fighters in all of the lands, so having to go back to square one, I definitely feel like was a very interesting thing for her, and I definitely do think it works in context of her character. Seeing her doubt herself and seeing her fail and seeing her want to revert back to being Samurai X I think is a really good concept in a very weird sense. I like the fact that we get to see her experience every single emotion in her way of becoming a ninja. I like the fact that we get to see a lot of the emotions that we saw with the core 4 as well, and also with Lloyd. I just like the fact that she feels very human this season, which is an interesting contrast because of the ghosts. But the thing is that I just really like the fact that they actually took the time to give her the screen time that she needed to truly become a water ninja. And it extends into more scenes beyond just the training. Seeing her actually rebel and try to be Samurai X to help the ninja I think was amazing. And seeing her realize that she is the water ninja is a fantastic scene. I really like the moments where she makes it rain unintentionally and she tries to deny it, but in reality she knew what the case truly was. I love all of this, and I love all of the emotion that we actually see her go through. All of this emotion culminates with her true potential scene at the end of the season. I really do like this scene, and I think it's one of the best scenes in all of Ninjago. Seeing her experience flashbacks with some of the main things of her life, seeing her train, seeing her be a kid, seeing her fail in a lot of different senses, and having that be the reason she becomes the water ninja, I think was absolutely brilliant. I think it's just the perfect way of demonstrating her as a character. Honestly, this is one of the seasons that solidified Nia to me in a lot of different ways. I love everything that they did here, and I'm very glad that she actually did get that time. Of course, the other big ninja in the season was Lloyd. Like I said, he is technically the main character of the season. It's just we just don't get a lot of him. But we do get a little bit nonetheless. We get to see him actually have moments of resisting Moro. We get to see him actually have moments of actually trying to be himself and actually trying to push through and help the ninja in any way. I love the scene of Moro and Kai fighting on the boat just outside of Cloud Kingdom. And the fact that Lloyd overcomes Moro just for a second, not to save himself, but to help Kai, I think is an amazing scene. It shows that no matter what, Lloyd will always think about others beyond himself, and I just think that's fantastic. And when he finally gets to come back and he actually gets to be a ninja once more, I just really like how he is basically, by all accounts, the mirror of Moro. I like how they balance each other out, and I love the scenes that he actually does have. In similar vein to my complaint about Moro, it's a complete nitpick, but I just kind of wish we got to see more of Lloyd. I just wish we got to actually have more scenes, maybe expand on the fight between him and Moro at both the start and the end of the season, have more scenes of him fighting the possession, have more scenes of him actually doing things within the season itself. I distinctly remember going back at season 6 and actually seeing Lloyd again felt like a breath of fresh air. I really did like actually finally getting to see the Green Ninja again. So I do think that is my biggest thing about him. Whilst I do really like the things that we got to see in the season, and I think possessed Lloyd is something that I would not have wanted to reduce in any way, I just kind of wish we got more of both Moro and Lloyd as a separate piece. But honestly, again, that is just a complete nitpick. I like what we got with Lloyd. I like Lloyd acknowledging that he needs to be a master. I like Lloyd having that final scene with Garmadon. I like Lloyd actually being more wise and actually willingly losing a fight because he knew it was necessary when it does come to the story itself. I just really like what they were doing with him, and it felt like Lloyd was going in a fantastic direction. Of course, he never really got to go in that direction, but I like it in its own vacuum of a season itself. So Lloyd is a really nice addition to the season, if a little bit absent. Next up though, I am going to talk about all 4 of the core ninja together, because apart from one thing, they don't really have too much different about them in this season. I like them all individually, they all have some really cool moments, but the thing is that for the most part, they're just a complete collective unit this time round, which is really cool. I like the fact that we get to see a lot of the 4 just interacting with each other, just generally speaking. As much as I like Lloyd, Nia, and all the addition of the side characters, the thing is that there is something just really fun about the 4 together. It's where Ninjago began at the end of the day, and I think it's just where my brain just naturally clicks. It's just the caveman DNA coming up, if anything. But I really like the journey. I like the whole moments of them switching between who's the leader. I like their bickering between each other. It just makes for a really fun dynamic. You can tell that there's just a lot of chemistry between each other in the season, and it just simply works. We get to see how they just adapt to the situation, generally speaking. We get to see them realize that water is their counter against ghosts. We get to see them learn how to use their jitsu. We get to see them just simply try to adapt to the world around them. The big thing about the season is the fact that they don't have powers for a majority of it. And I really do like that. I like that it has some form of adaptation. I like the fact that they're basically thinking on their feet. But honestly, I just think, just generally speaking, they just work as a unit. Like I said, there is just one standout when it does come to the 4, and that is of course the fact that Cole does become a ghost in the season, and I do like it inherently. We do know for a fact that it was a last minute addition to the season, and you can kind of see that reflected in the sets, because we never actually got the ghost head Cole until 2016. But the thing is that I really do like the fact that they made this decision. I really like how it does cause some sort of adaptation to the story itself, but the thing is that for the most part, we get like an episode or 2 where Cole being a ghost matters, but then afterwards it just kind of goes to nothing. It's honestly not really a major aspect of the season, and there are many times where you could have argued that Cole should have met his demise, but the thing is that it's just a fun little addition that I just don't think they thought too much about after the point in time. But the 4 are just simply fun. I think it's just a lot more of what we needed when it does come to them. I don't think there's anything majorly standing about any of them. I just think they just all simply work in the season. But the thing is that I kind of like that. I like the fact that they're not having some character-defining, world-changing plot happening to them. I just like the fact that they've just remained consistent when it does come to the season. So when it does come down to it, that's all I really want to say about them. But it's nothing bad whatsoever. The last character I want to talk about here is naturally Wu. Wu does have a very big factor when it does come to the possession. He is basically the entirety of the reason the season happens, because he does have that connection to Morrow, like I said. I like the fact that there is an element of guilt when it does come to Morrow. You can see that while Wu is upset about the fact that Morrow is the villain, and he's obviously trying to fight back against the threat, you can see that he is just not really happy about the fact that it is happening. You can see how reluctant he is to admit his faults, and of course, this goes into the whole thing of Wu just never telling the ninja anything, but I like the fact that there is a lot of guilt reflected in Wu, especially towards the earlier end of the season. I do also like how at the end, Wu is genuinely upset over the loss of Morrow. I love the fact that Wu does want Morrow to redeem himself, and in a lot of ways he does in future occurrences, but the thing is that I like the fact that it does genuinely feel like Wu still did care for Morrow. I like the fact that it feels like Wu, regardless of what happened, he still did love his first student, and I really do like that. It's very subtle, and of course there's a lot of comments to be made about Wu, but I just like the fact that it does just feel like it really works here. I like the fact that it feels like there are some uncovered emotions when it does come to Wu, and I like that it feels like he's still being mysterious even though he's not directly showing it. So whilst I understand the whole joke of Wu never tells the ninja anything, I really don't think it's too bad, and I like the subtle details when it does come to the dynamic between him and Morrow. Honestly, it's just a nice little addition again. It's all these little factors when it does come to these characters that do come together to make something solid, and I think that is the biggest example when it does come to the characters this time round. I think all of them just have their little piece to play to make a larger fantastic puzzle. So that is basically it when it comes to Wu for me. So let's move on. Aside from all of the characters, the other big thing when it does come to Possession for me is the fact that the world building is absolutely fantastic. We know that Ninjago as a show has many realms, 17 to be specific. But the thing is that we also know for a fact that whilst it was established that these realms did exist in previous seasons, this is the time when we fully got to realize what was going on in terms of Ninjago's wider scope. We finally got to see what was truly out there, and we got introduced to more realms as well because of it. This is where we met the Cloud Kingdom. This is where we got to see the Cursed Realm. I love the fact that these realms were hard established within the season, and it definitely did make Ninjago feel a lot bigger. And as Lloyd said himself in the finale, we realized that there was just so much more out there, and the future was quite bright for Ninjago. Obviously, in the out-of-universe sense, you could link that back to Dragon's Rising, but the thing is that it really did show that there was so much more to the show than we truly did realize. But it wasn't even just the realms that got introduced. We got introduced to so many new artifacts and so much more information about the world than we truly did realize. We got introduced to Air Jitsu, and by extension Master Yang. We got to learn that there were more techniques out there. And of course, Air Jitsu is now missing when it comes to Ninjago, and whether or not you think that should return is a whole nother question. But the thing is that we learned that there were more martial arts out there, not at the level of Spin Jitsu, but definitely up there in terms of its power. But beyond that as well, the Sword of Sanctuary, the Realm Crystal. We got to learn a lot more about the first Spinjitzu Master, where he was actually laid to rest. There are so many more things about the show that were established just in Possession alone, and I really like that. Honestly, the world went from such a kind of closed off thing that we knew a lot about to an endless well of potential. Even to this very day, we know about all of these realms, but we actually haven't even seen them all. But the thing is that that's a fantastic thing. I like the fact that this is the season that really locked in the fact that there was so much more to this world. And again, it's a major big aspect when it does come to why this season is loved. It's the fact that this series really did take it by the belt and decide to give us so much more than we truly did understand. The last thing that did get introduced as well that I feel like is definitely worth mention is Ronin. Ronin is honestly a very interesting addition to this season. He took on very much the anti-hero stance. He, by technicality, betrays the ninja at times, but of course it's all ultimately for his own goals. And I do like that. It was a really cool transition and definitely a cool mirror when it does come to the ninja. You have these infallibly good characters, but we also got a lot of screen time for a character that basically was just out for himself. I really like what Ronin introduced to the season, and I definitely do like the aspects that he did bring. Didn't like some of the scenes he had with Nia though. But the thing is that he's still a decent addition when it does come to the season, and he definitely did serve his purpose. He played his part, and he definitely did have his step when it did come to the overall feel of the season. He does have a stake in the story, and he does actually influence the ending of the story as well. He does take on Moro directly, and he does actually have some sort of stake in it, which I do like, so I do think it's definitely worth bringing him up. He as a side character is very interesting when it does come to Ninjago. He definitely does have his up and downs, and I have made a video about him before, so it's really difficult to tell, but again, in a vacuum, as in terms of his motivations, I do think he was a solid addition to the season as well. But beyond all of that, and at the end of the day, whilst this season did really take off and give us all of these amazing new concepts, did the season ultimately land? Did the season actually give us a satisfying conclusion? And that's the thing as well, I genuinely do think it did. I've mentioned the Preeminent, but the thing is that it's difficult to really talk about the Preeminent. She's not necessarily a character, she's the living embodiment of the Cursed Realm, and it's difficult to determine something based off of that, but she's still a living being regardless, and definitely did serve as a really cool final boss. The thing is that also it was an amazing contrast when it did come to Nia. The final confrontation between Nia and the Preeminent, I think, was an amazing scene, like I said earlier. So I do think not only did the season take off, it did land as well. I think the finale of Possession definitely did have a nice rounded off ending, and it definitely did feel really good because of it. So honestly, like I said, where it took off, it most certainly did give us a satisfying end. But taking all of this into account, how do I feel about Possession 11 years on? Honestly, it's really difficult, because when I was younger, this was possibly my favourite season for a very long time. Honestly, I adored Possession when it did come out. But this far on, and with the context of all the new seasons that we've gotten, it definitely has made things interesting to determine a favourite season. Now, I do understand the criticisms of Possession. I haven't really listed them in this video, because I do like to really home in on the positives when it does come to these videos. But the thing is that I do acknowledge that there are certain issues when it does come to possession. I've noted the issues with pacing mainly, but the thing is that whilst I do think that there are some apparent issues and no season is perfect, I definitely think possession still definitely holds up. I honestly think that there's so much good to possession and there's so many little aspects of the season that I can't help but ignore and have to acknowledge as something that is fantastic. I think possession just does a lot for Ninjago and is an essential component when it does come to this show. I think all the characters are handled extremely well. I like the development all the characters have got. I love how the ninja do adapt in the season, and I like where they do end up from the start compared to the end. I do also like the fact that the main villain is so encapsulated. Moro is the most iconic villain, or one of, for a very particular reason. And I do like the fact that it does feel like his motivations are clear, concise, and I like how he handles himself throughout the course of the season. But here's the thing, I don't know if I would consider it my favourite season anymore. We have had a lot of new Ninjago content since the event of Possession. We have had many seasons, and all of them do have their own unique strengths. And as someone who personally really likes the Oni trilogy, I don't think it does compare to something like that for me personally. But the thing is that I do understand why this would still be someone's favourite season. I understand all of the charm to it, I love all of the aspects it introduces, and I definitely cannot ignore that when I do look at the season. So it is up there for me. I definitely think it's a fantastic entry, but I just think it's officially fallen off of that podium for me. But that doesn't make it bad. That doesn't make it a bad season at all, if anything. I genuinely think that there's a load of good stuff when it does come to possession. I just think for me personally, a lot of seasons just do a lot of things a lot better for me. There are seasons I will go to beforehand to rewatch over possession, but that's not a bad thing and not a gripe at the season, because I have so much positive I want to say about the season, and I definitely have done it today. But honestly, when it comes down to it, whilst possession is still an absolutely fantastic season, it is no longer my favourite. But that, of course, is not a bad thing, but I definitely do understand, like I said, why it could be yours. But overall, Possession is an extremely fun season that I do like to go back to every once in a while and just appreciate when it does come to the rewatch. There's so much to it that I absolutely adore, and I can't help but acknowledge it like such. But honestly, I am now more interested when it does come to your opinion on Possession. Do you like the season or do you dislike it? Is it your favourite? Is it your least favourite? What aspects stand out to you when it does come to Possession? I would love to know what you feel about it, because I do think it is an interesting discussion to actually have. But thank you very much for watching the video, and I do hope you enjoyed. And if you did, please consider subscribing. I love discussing Ninjago with more people. And if you do want to support the channel any further, which you do not have to, you can become a channel member and join the legends that you do see on screen. Thank you to each and every single one of you. Your support means the absolute world to me. But like I said, that is about it for today, and take care. Okay,